So many people have asked or commented on videos or asked in person on Discord, whatever, what file types that I'm shooting my videos on for either, just talking head YouTube like this or wildlife clips and whatnot, or in the kayak. Now, last year I pretty much just did 10-bit H.265 and that's all I used. So for this year, I've pretty much forced myself to dig deep into the different formats the Z9 can handle. So in this video, we're really just going to worry about looking at the 8-bit 265, 10-bit 265, ProRes 422 HQ 10-bit, and then also 12-bit NRaw. And just look at how the final product compares to each other. We found a nice little place to test out this footage. It's in the snow. It's next to a covered bridge that's going to have some darker contrasting colors compared to the bright white snow. And I feel it's really going to push the dynamic range of the files, and it's going to make it basically the toughest scenario I could think of myself. And whenever we were filming the examples, it was about, I think it was like 4 degrees, about like negative 10 Celsius, somewhere around there. It was super cold. We just got our first snow of the winter. So we're going to roll in and show individual examples of how they edited out. Now, when it comes to the file sizes, I'll put a little blip up there to show you the file sizes, and also the editing time between my M1 and my Windows machine. It seems for ProRes, the Windows machine is a lot faster, and then whenever it comes to NRaw, the M1 Apple set for the M1 chip is a lot faster. Anything with the basic 10-bit or 8-bit 265, it's pretty close or a wash, so not a huge deal with that one. Whenever it came to editing it and pushing it through Davinci Resolve Studio on the timeline, dragging and dropping different things into it, it all scrubbed perfectly fine. Like, there wasn't one file type that really stuttered either system's really hard. The only difference is whenever it came to export times between the Windows and the MacBook. So whenever it comes to the amount of footage that you'll fit on your camera card, we're going to use my Angelbird 512 gigabyte for example, and we'll put a list on there so you can see how much actually fits on each one of those, for each one of those on the card. I highly suggest the AV Pro SE 512 gigabyte from Angelbird. I've used that for about almost 2 years now, and it's worked flawless. I haven't had any overheating problems. I haven't had any warnings. Literally nothing has showed up on the Z9, so runs really nice for that. And it supports all of the video codecs that you would want, including like NRaw, 8K 60, all that stuff. And I'll put a link down below in the description for that. Now, the reality is for 10-bit ProRes and NRaw, you can shoot NLog with it as well, which gives you a flat profile. And right now we are using ProRes 422 HQ with the NLog flat profile. You can use regular SDR for those as well, and the SDR base ISO is going to be 64 ISO on the Z9, or whatever camera you have. The base ISO of the photo mode will be base ISO of your video mode. One thing you got to keep in mind though is if you're going to use the NLog for your profile curve, is your base ISO in 10-bit 422 and NRAW is going to be 800 ISO, so you're going to need a ND filter for on the end of your lens. Lucky for me, it is on, even with the snow, it is really dark out today, and it's kind of blowing around still, so don't have to worry about that too. So when it comes down to it, to editing these 4 different file types, 8-bit 265, I kind of struggled to get a nice white balance with that, and it's just, I don't know, I just didn't like it. There obviously wasn't much data there, so pushing and pulling and messing with the white balance and exposure and the shadows and highlights and everything, you're obviously limited with that. Now, whenever it comes to the 10-bit and the ProRes 422 HQ, both of those are obviously 10-bit, and they edited basically the same. They felt the same to me. Now, whenever it comes to editing the NRAW, the 12-bit, you have way more leeway than the ProRes 422. For myself, I felt like it really pushed a lot of green. Like, everything seemed really green. Like, you would be sitting there trying to edit the color of the snow to make it a nice white for snow, and I swear it'd be a tint of red, a tint of green. Like, I just couldn't get it perfect, and it also seemed a little unsharp compared to the rest. But also in the footage you see for the before and after example, I did accidentally bump the focus wheel on the lens, so it is a tiny bit out of focus. So partially that's on my fault, and I don't have time to go back and reshoot it, to be honest. But anyways, if you want to shoot HDR footage, you have to shoot in 265 10-bit, and then you have to go into the settings and select HLG instead of SDR or NLog, and it'll let you edit HDR footage, which is super cool. One day I might get into that. I just gotta buy the monitor for it from the computer. So the original question I started the video with: what file type do I shoot with? If I'm in the kayak and I'm holding the Z9 with the 180-600, okay, and I'm taking videos or clips of different animals or birds or whatever, I'm going to be shooting in 4K 120. And the only two formats that support 4K 120 is going to be NRaw 12-bit, which so far I'm not a huge fan of for my workflow anyways, or the 10-bit 265. ProRes does not support 4K 120. If it did, I would shoot ProRes for everything, but since it doesn't, I have to stick to 10-bit 265 for that. But also in 265 you get a 2.3x 4K 120 crop. You don't get that in anything else either, so that's super cool. Pretty much turns the lens into like a 1300mm lens for video in 4K. And everything in the video that you see for examples, including the talking head here, is going to be internally subsampled from 8K. The camera downsamples or subsamples, whatever you want to call it. It takes an 8K image, squishes it down into 4K. For anything in ProRes at 4K 60 or less, and it also does the same thing for 265 10-bit. Now, if it's a 120 frame video, you don't get any downsampling or oversampled or subsampled, whatever. And really, my only gripe is if Apple ProRes 422 HQ allowed 120 frames, or the camera could do it, or firmware in the future, whatever, from Nikon. If it allowed it, I would just cruise in that the entire time, no problem. But what it comes down to is the average person who's going to buy this camera. You're not buying a Z9 to go shoot a commercial for Ford or Chevy or something like that, most likely. You're going to use something else. But for the average creator on YouTube, social media, or whatever, the H.265 10-bit is going to serve every purpose that you need flawlessly. If you need anything more than that, you got ProRes. And personally, myself, I feel like ProRes is a little bit sharper of a final picture than, say, 265, but that's just my personal opinion. So at the end of the video here, we're going to show a comparison of all four before and afters for the final edit. And in the comments, if you could please tell me what your personal preference is and how they turned out, which one you think looks better, or if you have any questions, something I might have missed, maybe a different example you would like to see. Now, I shot this in the wintertime because I feel like white snow is probably the hardest thing to get right in a camera, and it's going to really push the dynamic range of your files for editing. So that was my idea with that. I'm not a professional editor, so yeah, I'll just gotta put that out there because I know someone's gonna ridicule me.